everyone, wherever you are. So,
we had a bit of a disconnection in the last talk, so maybe you could just remind people that talk was recorded. They can listen to it later. A good chunk of it is not.
Okay. So, Bob's telling me that there was a disconnect in the audio of the, last night's talk?
No, 8:30 this morning.
Oh, 8:30 this morning, and that was recorded, so it'll be on up at some other time, or now, or?
It'll be posted.
We'll post it soon. Sorry.
I don't know when.
Don't know why. It's like me and Polly. I don't know. So. Start with so. I couldn't teach a beginner's retreat, I think. I couldn't just lay it all out. I did, so I kind of assume everyone has studied the Four Noble Truths. But there is a place for study. And interestingly enough, when you have a good conceptual framework that is whole and you understand all the elements of it, then you can read other literature in a very meaningful way. Because you have some standards which you have kind of agreed upon in your own mind, and they work for you, and they're kind of coherent. And then you can read Sufi literature, or you can read Jacques Lucéran, or whatever different ways of expressing this possibility of spiritual enlightenment that we humans have. And then it's really rich, because human literature around enlightenment and is just so rich. There's just so much, really, in all the traditions. But if you are hung up on words and you don't know how to, if you just kind of take, like the word God, and what does that mean, really? And you just get stuck on the words, then it's hard to read things, because you just take it kind of literally from your own word system. But when you have a sense of what the spiritual journey is as we express it, and then okay, I got that feeling. Then I think you tend to relate to the literature words of others in a way which is kind of receptive. So there's some things that, and I'm not saying all spiritual practices are one. I don't believe in that at all. So I've been sometimes literally accosted by Jehovah's Witnesses, telling me that I'm, anyway, we won't go there. And I don't go, oh, we're all one, we all believe. No, I don't. No, I have a discerning mind. So in that vein, I like to read across traditions, not because I need anything in terms of concepts. I don't need any more information. I could just go to Google if I need that. But I'm just kind of very curious about human spirituality, how it expresses itself, and the metaphors people use, and the visceral experiences they have. And I just find that so, it's almost as interesting as weaving. Even more so. And then I sometimes what am I drawn to in spiritual literature? Why is it that I feel intuitively, yeah, I like that? And it's not the conceptual structures. Like I'm not one. I don't get off on cleverness. Cleverness. I get bored with that pretty quick. So I'll read something really, really clever in Buddhism. Say, wow, yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, okay, because it's kind of just opinions and stuff. But when something like Luang Sumedho's teaching is, I find profoundly revealing because he is so honest. He is so honest about his own troubles, but it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all, and yet it strikes me very, very deeply. But in that vein, I'm just drawn to the literature which indicates that love and awareness are synonymous. Now, obviously, love is a difficult word. I love fish and chips, and all. That's how monks always talk, and it's not love. But it's a more powerful word than metta for me. Metta, I didn't grow up with that. I know for Thai people, metta is that is a word for loving kindness. I get the translation, but I grew up with the word love. So, and I noticed in like monks never say, I love you. So I've been starting to write to Suchito, I love you. And you know what? He writes back, I love you too. Like I was watching, we're with metta. What does that mean? So now I use sometimes amor y luz. Is that Spanish or love and light? I use that, and I do it kind of tongue in cheek, like if I'm writing to a very serious monk. This is revelation. But so those themes are really important for me, and they're not just themes. I think they're kind of like guiding lights. So I'm drawn to the literature of Advaita Vedanta, which speaks in that way, Nisargadatta or Sri Ramana. I'm drawn to Simone Weil, the great Christian mystic, and her descriptions of love are just astounding. Her life was weird, totally weird. I couldn't understand it at all. But I don't have to judge her life. I can't understand her life, but I can see why do those words strike me and impact me? So this morning, I was suggesting how to work with these very difficult experiences of the mind producing a lot of thought, and I suggested something like injustice. Right? That's what I was talking about. Injustice. I don't remember what I was talking about, and how that can create huge amount of thought, or betrayal, and these are quite difficult things to work with. And I was just kind of, I'm always trying to explain myself because intuitively I know what I'm doing, but in that part where Lumpo Dun says the mind going out is the cause, the result of the mind going out is suffering, the mind knowing the mind, I was contemplating that a lot, and I do a lot. And when I do that, when I contemplate that deeply, then I feel the heart. There doesn't seem to be a difference. The heart just, oh yeah. And the way I don't understand that, but I don't need to. But when I ask myself a question, what doesn't move? And then I'm very still and observing, and I feel the heart. So I begin to intuit, awareness and love. I can see, what that means. And then my own sense of awareness being all-inclusive. This is very much from Luang Sumedho's early teachings to me, that awareness includes all. It doesn't exclude. Thought discriminates. We need discrimination. Thought evaluates and judges and sets up differences. But this kind of awareness as a kind of open acceptance of the way things are, which isn't again, it's not about social, it's not a social kind of attitude, it's a spiritual attitude for me. And so I'm kind of drawn to things like that, which aren't really intellectual. And one needs words to talk about them, but to kind of move towards that. And so on this retreat, I'm pondering, how can I make that intelligible? And I think I make it intelligible through the body. And I do feel that the body has intelligence. It's not the intelligence of mathematics or calculus or something like that, but it is maybe it's, what do I call it, the intelligence of being. When I go forest bathing, right, and I'm up in my head and thinking, I wonder how old those trees are. Yeah, that looks like it. That's a red pine, and that's a white pine, isn't it? I wonder how long. Yeah, that's a hemlock. I'm not forest bathing. I'm in thought. I'm just doing my forestry bit. But when I go into the forest and I'm from here, then the greenness bathes me. The volume of the trees bathes me. And the feeling is very uplifting. And I would that is the idea of mudita for me. In the teachings of the four Brahma Viharas, you have metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Mudita is, we say, empathetic joy. So it's usually related to a mother is happy that her child is happy. A mother is happy when her child is successful, and so on. Sure, yeah. But I think it's more profound than that. And one of the things I often have pondered is, why beauty? Why do we human beings, how come we can appreciate beauty? Squirrels? Maybe. I don't know what they do with the sunset. I thought that this was squirrel heaven until about 20 minutes ago. I thought, if you're going to be reborn as a squirrel, this is the place. You've got acorns, you've got walnuts, you've got sunflowers, you can have a tomato every now and then. I mean, it's really... And then I saw it. A red squirrel was chasing a black squirrel. It's like the same old stuff. But when you go into the forest, if you have gone into the forest, if you're in thought, you won't be with the forest. That's obvious, right? But if you can bring your attention, and it's not like you're concentrating on the forest. It's more like you're making the forest, you're available to the forest, maybe if you use that language, because you have this space, and you have heart, which can then appreciate and know and be in the forest in a non-intellectual way. And that's incredibly refreshing. It is a forest bathing. It really is. And that I would consider love, wouldn't it? That must be kind of what we're talking about. And if we're saying in Theravada that the manifestation of an arahant is socially through the Brahma Viharas, through metta, through loving kindness, compassion, joy, and peace, then it makes sense that awareness practice is loving kindness, is compassion, is joy, is peace. It has to be the same. Now, doctrinally, someone will say, no. Well, that's okay. But I'm just kind of indicating a way of, what am I indicating? I guess I'm pointing to a way of trying to appreciate life from a non-intellectual way, to point to the beauty of intellect, but also the limitation of intellect. Intellect has its limits. And to spend a considerable amount of time more in the heart area rather than the head area, because we do that a lot. We do a lot of analysis and thinking and judging, and most of us need to do that for our livelihoods. And it's probably a bit imbalanced. Now, I am not one for sentimentality. I don't find smarmy descriptions that the lamb lays down with the lion. I've never liked that. I think the lamb hasn't got a chance. This isn't going to turn out well. So that kind of stuff, that kind of Hallmark postcard kind of stuff. So I have a good cynical side too, for sure. And I think that's healthy, actually. But what is it what is it that isn't like sentimentality, but is actually more profound, like more deeply in our being, and that we access. Some access it through bhakti, through prayer, the bhakti traditions of India. So, like in Indian religiosity, we'll see maybe an Indian devotee totally devoted to their guru, and you think, oh, that's a bit over the top. Come on, sober up, man. But the guru or even the image is the idea. If I understand it correctly, the idea is that you take on the attributes of the deity. So if the deity is beautiful and has loving kindness, then you take on those attributes. Now that's not a way of practice that I do, but I could get that. I could see how that might work if you had that kind of mindset. It could also be superstitious. Sure, it could be superstitious, but not to dismiss it in that way. So our way is the way of non-grasping of objects, which sounds pretty dry. In that way it is, but also then in the non-grasping of objects to also know objects with an open heart. It all belongs. That the good, bad, and the ugly are all a part of nature. That the jealousies and fears and negativities of my heart are equally valid when they come up, as are the joyous responses to life. Because if I don't do that, if I don't allow the whole thing to manifest, then I'm in a space that is actually not accepting. Now I can discern, and so when we talk about discernment, we're talking about the wisdom to make choices on how we do, what we follow, what we pursue. So discernment is important, but if discernment is coming from aversion or judgment or trying to get rid of, it won't be the discernment of wisdom. It'll be the discernment of craving. So we emphasize craving, like what's the problem? What is it? This, like if I feel ticked off at someone for some reason, that has arisen because of all kinds of reasons. It arises and then the practice of knowing the mind. If you do that, and let's say the anger is just generating all kinds of thoughts, and they're just going on and on and on, and you have enough mindfulness to say, what is it that doesn't move, or background, foreground, that kind of language, then you're doing this. The mind knows the mind, and that's very subtle. That's not very obvious. The desire wants to fix things and get rid of things, which is okay too. And that takes quite I should think, a kind of maturity of practice. Like for most of us, like I say, my first few years of meditative inner life was a horror show. it was really bad news. Greed, hatred, and delusion, and all the rest of it. So the lifestyle kept me going. Good people, good work, good teachers, good direction, good attitudes, and then that lifestyle built character, which could then have more refined sensibilities around these more interesting parts of human experience. That I didn't understand at the time. I just had faith. I had such faith in Ajahn Chah. I just said, whatever, sure. 100 push-ups, fine. Stand on your head, fine. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And I knew because he was a very, very wise and compassionate being. And sometimes practices like that, you don't touch refinement. You have to just endure like coarseness sometimes. But the witnessing of like coarse states of mind, difficult states of mind, is very important because it is purification. And so often I found I go through some terribly difficult, dark time, and I stay with it, and I stay with it, and I stay with it, and I feel so liberated. Not because I had a nice liberating experience. No, it was the opposite. It was terribly difficult. But I kept to witnessing. I kept to my sense of trust and awareness. And then it purifies through the heart. it finds its own cessation. It goes its own way. And this release, there's a kind of release. And it's not a constructed release. It's not like I've built something else to get rid of this thing. It's not. It's the release of energy, the release of asava. So in that vein, many people now are listening to a podcast series from Samaneri Jayasara. Have you heard of her? She's just got the most brilliant selection of religious podcasts. She takes readings from Ajahn Chah, from the Dervish traditions, from Rumi, from Nisargadatta, from all manner of wonderful beings. And she's Australian. She has a very kind of compelling voice. And their meditations, which are like 15 minutes, a half an hour. And I know Luang Por listens to them, I listen to them. And they have a kind of, like if you're going to watch the internet, I think her website would be better than BBC. So if you're ever like you really need a hit of digital stuff, go to her website. Listen and use it as a meditation. There's some very, very, very wonderful kind of teachings on there. Shall we do some meditation?
How do you spell her name?
Jayasara, Jayasara, Jayasara.